You know, I've been thinking about, because this is my birthday week, I'm turning 34 on Friday. So I've been thinking a lot and reflecting a lot on aging and getting older and this idea of love and compassion, as you get older, as you start to step more into your life path. I think that when I was growing up, I think when you're a kid, for example, you have a very clear understanding of who you are. You know what you're interested in, you know what you like to do, you know what you love to do, you know what you don't like to do, you know? And then as you get older, I think society teaches you what you should be doing. And so all of the things that come naturally to you as a child start to fade, and you start to pick up stories of whatever it is your parents want you to do or whatever it is your teachers want you to do. And so you're starting to carry this new story, and you've forgotten about or suppressed the story that your heart wants to sing, you know? And I was reflecting on my own childhood, because I think that's at the core of everything in our lives, is things that have happened in our childhood and how our childhood has shaped us. And I was just really giving thought to it and thinking about this idea of love and self-love. And I can remember in my childhood, I was really passionate about animals, and I'm still very passionate about animals. My dog is my daughter, my firstborn. And I remember I was so passionate about animals that I wrote to the ASPCA, which is a really well-known shelter in New York City, and I told them, I probably was like 6 or 7, maybe 8, but no older than that years old. And I wrote to the president of the ASPCA, and I told him a little bit about myself, and I said that I wanted to work there. And I remember he sent me a book. I think it was called Creatures Great and Small, and he said, something like, talk to me in a few years. But I thought that was so special to get a response and also to receive a book. And I think that was something that laid the foundation of my curiosity of reading. I remember growing up, I didn't like to read at all. Like when I was little, I loved hearing stories. Like I loved my mom telling me stories about, I remember she used to make up stories for me, and I loved that part. But when it came to me reading on my own, it was just something I wasn't interested in. And then I received that book, and I think around the same time I received a book from my grandmother about dogs, and it was all the dog breeds that were out, that were known, that were in existence and recognized in the 90s. And I remember that was the moment that I got into reading. And I remember that book. I would sit on my bed and I would memorize every single dog breed. And by the time, maybe like in a couple months, I would walk down the street with my mom and say, that's a pug, that's a Lhasa Apso, that's a, Dalmatian, whatever. And it was like one of my favorite pastimes. And then I remember at the same time, because of the knowledge that I received in reading those books, and because of the passion that I began to feel in learning even more about animals, and the love that I felt towards animals, the connection I felt towards animals, I decided that as a kid, I told everyone, I remember this, I was like, I want to be a veterinarian. I knew I wanted to be a veterinarian because I thought that was the way that I would be able to work with animals. I thought if I was a veterinarian, I could help save animals and help save the world. And I wanted to do that for a really long time. And then when I got maybe into middle school and started getting more into my looks and, things like that, and also had my first kind of experience with actual science classes, I started to feel, oh, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I'm not good at science, so because I'm not good at science, I don't think I can be a veterinarian. And I started to get discouraged, and I started to detract from my interest in being a veterinarian. And little by little, I stopped telling people that's what I was going to be when I grew up, and I started focusing on other things, which is fine because, right, we all have the right, the ability as we mature, as we age, to make a change, to decide that we don't want to do something that we thought we wanted to do. So I really think there are two things that happen as you get older. You learn a lot about the world around you, and as you're learning about the world around you, and as you are receiving messages from your society, from people you're friends with, from your family, from school, about who you are, I think that we start to pivot, or we start to shift the internal dialogue that we have with ourselves in terms of knowing what we want and who we want to be. And we start shifting that and changing that into who other people want us to be. When you get your first report card back and it says, oh, you didn't do so well in your science grades, then you start to say, oh, well, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I should go a different way. Maybe I should try something else. And sometimes we lose interest in that thing because it becomes challenging for us. And that's a lot like falling in love sometimes, when we don't have a strong foundation and understanding of what love is, right? Because a lot of times when we think about the idea of falling in love, generally the idea of falling in love has to do with how somebody makes you feel inside, right? And you feel like, oh my God, this person makes me feel so good inside. I love how they look. I love their face. I love all this stuff about them, right? But then when you have your first disagreement, or you have your first fight, or you have your first challenge, you start to detract from the person, and you say, oh, you know what? Maybe this person isn't for me, right? You say, maybe this relationship isn't for me, right? Maybe this isn't going to work out the way that I thought it would work out. And I was looking up, because I'm obsessed with looking up the definitions of things. I was looking up the definition of love, and I feel like love is such a heavy, not in a negative way, but it's just a very loaded term, because it has so much, like when you say the word, you can feel in your throat, you can feel the energy of the word love, and there's so much power in that word. And I was looking up the definition, and it said, intense feelings for someone. Let me look at my notes, because I want to make sure I got it right. Yeah, it says intense feelings of deep affection, right? And I like that definition. Like, I think that works, but there's so many layers to love. And when we think about like love of ourselves and love of others, it's really important to look at it not as like such a quick thing, right? Because a lot of us in society right now, we're so accustomed to everything being instant gratification that when things don't work out the way that we expect them to, or things are a little bit more challenging than we expect them to be, we just shut down and we do something else because it's not easy. And love in itself is super layered, and it's a journey, right? Just like you getting older, me getting older, it's a journey. Everything that you've experienced up until the age that you are right now at the present moment is an experience, and it's part of your journey. And love is the same way. It's part of our journey. We learn what it means over time. In a relationship, yes, you may fall into love with somebody very quickly, but once you get in a relationship that's solid, with a solid foundation, you have to really learn about the person every single day. It's not like you just get in love and that's it and it's smooth after that. In order to truly love someone, there's another element that must exist. And that element, I believe, is compassion. And there's some things about the word compassion that I don't like. There was something I was looking up and it said having pity. And pity, I don't know if that's how I would define compassion. When I looked up compassion and found a definition that I liked, it was sympathetic consciousness of others. Compassion is sympathetic consciousness of others. And I think when we talk about love and we talk about relationships, there's an important element of compassion that also must be married together with the word love in order for it to be really successful, right? And not only when you think about relationships with others, but also relationships with yourself, right? Over time, you have to have a lot of love and you have to have a lot of compassion, right? Consciousness of your inner self, your inner child, in order for you to be able to grow and to evolve. To not give up on yourself so quickly. That's a key. This week on my podcast, I'm going to be talking all about how to be yourself. And I think when you truly learn how to be yourself, there's no book that tells you how to be yourself. But when you truly start to accept who you are, you're tapping in to this union of love and compassion in yourself. And when you're able to have a deep affection and a sympathetic consciousness for yourself, right? And be introspective to look within, then when it comes to your relationships with the outside world, you can start to have a better sense of love and compassion for others, for things that you're interested in. You can stick to something if you feel like, this is hard. Like me, when I was looking into being a veterinarian, I was like, this is hard. I don't know if I can do it. But I also didn't truly believe that I could do it. And because I didn't have a strong foundation within myself, it was hard for me to build a strong relationship with my pursuit of becoming a veterinarian because I wasn't sure, I wasn't certain within myself. And that's the same thing that is true of relationships, friendships, career path, whatever you are building a relationship with in your life. if you don't have love and compassion for yourself, honey, then how can you have love and compassion towards other things you want to build in your life? I think aging, wisdom, getting older is such a beautiful thing. And it's a beautiful thing because as you get older, I feel that you really get more in touch with who you are. You start to let go of other people's expectations of you, and you start to truly live. That's something I am thinking about today and this week, especially as I get to my next year of life. And it's also important to just be grateful. You know, that's a word that we hear tossed around so much, this idea of being grateful, but it's so true. You know, this morning I woke up and I was starting to feel a little bit like, oh my gosh, I'm turning a year older. What have I accomplished? What have I done? And then, you know, I took out my journal because, you know, that's something that I always talk about is really important. And I started to write down all of the things that I am grateful for in this moment. And you can start, if you can't think of anything, you know, you can start with your breath. The fact that you can breathe, it's amazing because when you have breath, you have life. So in tapping into all the things that you're grateful for, like the fact that you've lived how many years you've lived on this beautiful planet in this beautiful universe, it's a blessing. You can start with that, you know? And once we start to focus on all the things we're grateful for, we can start to really build a love, right? A deep affection and a sense of compassion, a sympathetic consciousness for who we are, so we can better build those kinds of relationships that are full of love and compassion for others. So I'd love to hear from you. What are you grateful for today? What has getting older each year taught you about yourself? And how have you begun to define love and compassion in your own life? I want to hear from you. Write it in the comments. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, you're the only one who's in control of your life. So make it the best life possible, honey. Have a beautiful day. Thank you so much for listening. Enjoy your life. Enjoy your day. And make sure it's full of love and compassion. And that love and compassion starts where? With you. Right in here. Right in your heart. Right in your soul. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.